Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast, where we explore real-life topics to help you practice English. Today, we're diving into a topic that's on many minds right now, the 2024 U.S. election. We'll discuss what an election is, why it's so significant, and how it affects people in the U.S. and around the world. Whether you're new to learning about elections or just curious, we're here to guide you through.
Hi, listeners. Elections can seem complicated, but we're going to keep things simple and informative together.
So, Thomas, let's start with the basics. An election is when citizens of a country get to choose their leaders, right? In the U.S., this process happens every 4 years for the presidency. People vote, and those votes determine who will lead the country.
Exactly, Jennifer, and it's a big deal because the elected president will make important decisions that affect not only the U.S. but also the entire world. The U.S. election is especially significant because it's one of the largest democracies, so a lot of people are involved in choosing who they want to represent their values and priorities.
And this year, there are two main parties running, as usual the Democrats and the Republicans. Each party has its own vision for the country. What's interesting is that candidates have to campaign and convince people to vote for them. Campaigning includes speeches, debates, advertisements, and sometimes even going door to door to meet people.
Yes, campaigns are a huge part of elections. Candidates need to reach as many people as possible to share their ideas and plans. And debates are especially popular because they give people a chance to see how candidates think and react to important issues. For English learners, watching these debates can also be a great way to practice listening and pick up new vocabulary.
Good point, Thomas. Now, one key part of the election process in the U.S. is the Electoral College. This is a unique system where states get a certain number of votes, or electors. It's not just a direct count of all individual votes across the country. Instead, each state has a number of electors based on its population, and candidates try to win as many states as possible.
Right, and that's why sometimes you might hear about swing states. These are states where both parties have a strong chance of winning, so candidates spend a lot of time and effort trying to get votes there. The way the Electoral College works can be a bit confusing at first, but it's all designed to balance the influence of smaller and larger states.
Another thing that stands out about U.S. elections is the high level of engagement. Many people volunteer to support their chosen candidate or participate in voter education drives to help people understand the issues better. It's really inspiring to see how involved people get, whether they're young, old, from big cities or small towns.
Absolutely, Jennifer, and speaking of engagement, in recent years, social media has become a powerful tool in U.S. elections. Candidates and their teams use platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to reach voters. It's fast, it's interactive, and it's a way to connect with younger voters especially, who might not watch traditional news as much.
Social media also makes it easier for people from around the world to follow the U.S. election, doesn't it? You don't have to live in the U.S. to see what's happening in the campaign, since news and updates spread quickly online. It's amazing how much information is available instantly, although that can be a bit overwhelming too.
That's true, and another interesting point is how issues important to Americans can sometimes reflect global concerns. Topics like climate change, international trade, and immigration come up a lot. These issues aren't just about one country, they impact people everywhere. So, leaders in the U.S. have a responsibility to consider how their policies affect other nations.
Exactly. And it also shows how elections in one country can influence things worldwide. For example, when a U.S. president sets a policy on climate, it might inspire other countries to follow a similar path, or it could create international discussions on how to handle global challenges.
So true, Jennifer, and one final point is about voter turnout. This refers to how many eligible people actually vote. In recent elections, voter turnout has been rising because people feel strongly about the direction they want their country to go. The higher the turnout, the more the election reflects the choice of the people.
Yes, and that's a powerful reminder for all of us about the importance of having a voice and participating in decisions that shape our lives. Whether you're an American voter or just someone interested in learning about the process, understanding elections helps us see how countries are governed and how policies are created.
Absolutely. Elections are a key part of democracy, and they allow us to choose leaders who represent our values and goals. It's a process that can be challenging, but it's also empowering for citizens.
And, Thomas, it's also interesting to think about how diverse the U.S. is in terms of geography, cultures, and viewpoints. This diversity means that candidates often need to address a wide range of issues to appeal to different groups. What might matter to voters in one state, like agriculture or rural healthcare, could be very different from the issues that urban voters are focused on, like public transit or affordable housing.
Absolutely, Jennifer, that's part of what makes the election so complex. Each candidate has to be aware of these regional concerns and try to bring everyone together. This focus on a wide range of issues gives people across the country a chance to feel heard, but it also means candidates need to work hard to find common ground on big topics.
And we should mention the importance of primary elections, where each party selects its candidate. Primaries are like mini-elections within each party, where members choose who they think should represent them in the final race. This adds another layer of choice for voters, as they can decide not just between parties, but between different candidates within the same party.
Yes, primaries are essential. They allow people to support candidates whose ideas closely match their own, even if that candidate might not be the frontrunner. It's a unique way for the public to shape the direction of the party. And since the primary season can last several months, voters have time to get to know each candidate's stance on important issues.
The media also plays a huge role throughout the entire election process. News outlets, interviews, and debates give people information about each candidate, their policies, and their backgrounds. It's also a way to hold candidates accountable by asking tough questions and fact-checking their statements. For those learning English, watching interviews and debates can be a great way to hear real-life discussions on complex topics.
That's a great point, Jennifer. Media coverage is everywhere, and people need to stay informed from multiple sources to get a balanced view. Not only is it good practice to listen and understand different accents and speaking styles, but it's also helpful for developing critical thinking skills. Engaging with the election coverage is like being part of an active conversation about the future.
Definitely, Thomas. And when Election Day finally comes, it's an exciting and intense moment. Many people line up early to vote, and some even travel long distances to reach polling stations. Voting is not only a right, but also a responsibility, and many citizens take it very seriously. In fact, some people volunteer at polling stations to help with the process and make it smooth for others.
It's a powerful sight to see people from all walks of life participating. Voting is such a straightforward way to have a say in the government, yet it can make such a huge impact. And for those of us watching from outside the U.S., it's inspiring to see this level of commitment to democracy. It reminds us that every vote, no matter how small, plays a part in shaping the future.
And after the voting is done, there's still more to come. The votes are counted, results come in, and everyone watches to see if there will be a clear winner or if the results might be contested. It can be a tense time, especially if the race is close. People wait anxiously to see who will lead the country for the next 4 years.
Yes, and that waiting period can be both exciting and stressful. The world is watching, and people are eager to see what direction the U.S. will take next. For many, the outcome can have personal and professional implications, so they follow the results closely. It's a reminder of the power of democracy, but also the importance of patience and respect for the process.
In the end, elections are about unity and moving forward. Even though the campaign period often brings out differences in opinions, the goal is for people to come together afterward and work toward common goals.
Yes, Jennifer, that's such an important point. Elections can sometimes be divisive, but at the core, they're about choosing someone who can bring people together, even with all their different perspectives. It's a test of a leader's ability to listen, empathize, and make decisions that serve a wide range of people, not just those who voted for them. This process of coming together afterward is crucial for progress.
And it also highlights how important it is for citizens to stay engaged even after the election is over. By participating in local meetings, voicing concerns, and staying informed, people can continue to play a role in the decisions that affect them. It's not just about choosing a leader, but about making sure leaders represent the people's voices long after the voting has ended.
Absolutely. Democracy is a constant effort that doesn't end on Election Day. Even for those learning English, following the U.S. election can be a fascinating journey into political vocabulary, debates, and public speeches. Understanding terms like policy, campaign promises, and legislation gives insight into not only the language, but also the culture of democracy.
And Thomas, observing how people advocate for the issues they care about can be a valuable lesson in communication. Whether it's about healthcare, the economy, or the environment, each of these topics teaches us something about expressing opinions, backing them up with facts, and respectfully disagreeing. For English learners, this is a great way to see language used with real impact.
Yes, Jennifer, watching debates, reading opinion articles, and listening to interviews can give learners a way to hear the tone, phrasing, and emphasis people use when they're passionate about something. And since emotions often run high during an election, it's an ideal time to see the power of persuasive language.
And that brings us back to the importance of understanding differing perspectives. No matter where someone is from, learning how to discuss and respect others' opinions is a valuable skill. Elections remind us that while we may have different views, we're all part of a shared community, working toward a better future.
Exactly. It's a lesson in unity, empathy, and commitment to positive change. And as you said, it's about seeing how language connects people, even during moments of strong disagreement. It's a powerful reminder that every voice matters. And for those learning English, understanding this language of connection is a way to feel a part of that conversation.
So true, Thomas. For anyone tuning in, whether you're a citizen, an observer, or an English learner, we hope you're inspired to stay informed, to listen actively, and to communicate clearly and thoughtfully.
I completely agree, Jennifer, and for anyone who's not familiar with the election process or even American politics, this is also a great time to learn about civic responsibility and the way a democratic government works. Seeing how leaders are held accountable by the public and the media gives a real sense of how democracy is sustained over time.
Yes, Thomas, and there's something fascinating about seeing these different stages from primaries to debates, right up to Election Day. Every part plays a role in shaping who leads the country, and it's a great example of a structured process that requires public involvement. Learning about these stages, especially in English, also helps people become more globally informed citizens.
Absolutely, Jennifer. Another thing to point out is how this entire process showcases the importance of clear and effective communication. Leaders are constantly explaining their ideas, responding to tough questions, and rallying people around their vision. For English learners, it's an ideal opportunity to hear formal language mixed with conversational phrases, especially in speeches and debates.
That's so true. And listening to candidates debate helps people understand the art of reasoning, of making arguments that appeal not only to logic, but also to emotions. Good leaders find ways to connect with people's hopes and fears. This mix of logical structure and emotional appeal is something English learners can apply to their own conversations, even beyond political topics.
Definitely, watching these moments can give English learners ideas on how to build strong statements, how to clarify a point, and even how to politely disagree. In debates, we see a lot of back and forth, and while it can get intense, the candidates are trained to communicate in a way that's impactful and memorable. It's a skill that's valuable for anyone.
And speaking of memorable, I think the way leaders present their ideas during an election is a lesson in being concise. They have only a few moments to make a lasting impression, so they focus on the core of their message. For learners, observing this helps with understanding the power of words, how a simple, well-chosen phrase can stick with an audience.
Exactly. Sometimes it's not about saying a lot, but about saying something that resonates. And this can apply in any setting, whether you're speaking in a meeting, giving a presentation, or just sharing ideas with friends. Elections remind us that powerful communication can be simple and clear, but deeply meaningful.
Right, Thomas. And it's such an important skill, no matter where you're from or what language you speak. Watching an election unfold, seeing people engaged and passionate, really brings to life the impact of words and ideas. For learners, it's a reminder of how language connects people on a large scale and how impactful communication can shape a nation's future.
Exactly, Jennifer. And something else that stands out is the way elections showcase values and priorities. Leaders talk about what they believe is best for the future, whether it's education, healthcare, jobs, or climate action. It's a time when candidates reveal what they think is worth fighting for, and for English learners, this can give insight into American values and concerns.
Absolutely, Thomas. And in every election, there's also this strong sense of choice and responsibility. People don't just sit back and let things happen. They actively make a decision about who they want to lead them. Observing this can really show learners how much individual voices matter and that their choices have the power to influence outcomes. It's empowering.
It is, and another aspect is the sense of unity that often emerges, especially after Election Day. No matter how divided people may seem during the campaign, there's usually a call to come together and work toward common goals. Watching this unfold is a lesson in collaboration and finding common ground, even when people have very different views.
That's a great point, Thomas. And for English learners, seeing people who are often opponents come together for the good of the country is inspiring. It's a reminder of the importance of listening, of empathy, and of focusing on what unites us rather than what divides us. This is something that applies not just in politics, but in everyday life as well.
Exactly, Jennifer, and the language used around these themes: unity, hope, progress is universal. These are words and concepts that resonate with people around the world. Listening to how leaders convey these ideas in English can be a powerful learning experience, especially for people who want to express similar sentiments in their own conversations.
Absolutely. And finally, I think elections show us how to be hopeful, even in challenging times. Leaders often talk about difficult issues, but they also offer solutions and a vision for a better future. This blend of realism and optimism can inspire people to take action, to believe in positive change, and to communicate in a way that's motivating and forward-thinking.
So true, Jennifer. Elections remind us that while things may not always be easy, there's always an opportunity for improvement and growth. For English learners, it's not just about learning new words, but about understanding the depth and power of language and how it can bring people together and drive meaningful change.
That's beautifully said, Thomas. And when we think about these powerful speeches or debates, it's interesting how language can be used to persuade and connect. For learners, paying attention to how candidates address issues, acknowledge challenges, and then frame their solutions can be a masterclass in impactful communication. It's a real-life lesson on how words can build trust and understanding.
Definitely, Jennifer, and it's not just what they say, but also how they say it. Tone, body language, eye contact, all these things come together to make the message stronger. For English learners, watching how these elements work together in political speeches or debates is helpful for picking up not only vocabulary but also nonverbal cues that are so important in effective communication.
Right, Thomas. And it's fascinating how certain phrases or expressions become memorable and resonate long after the election is over. Phrases like "yes, we can" or "make America great again" stick because they're clear, direct, and powerful. They show how impactful a simple, well-crafted message can be. English learners can gain so much by seeing how a few words can carry such a big meaning and create lasting influence.
Exactly. Jennifer, those catchphrases are easy to remember and full of meaning, which makes them so effective. Learning how to simplify a message without losing its impact is a skill that's valuable in any language. For learners, practicing how to condense complex ideas into short, meaningful sentences can be a great exercise for improving both fluency and confidence in speaking.
Absolutely. And watching candidates respond to questions, especially the challenging ones, is a great way to see how to think on your feet. They often have to answer unexpected questions or address criticism in real time. For English learners, this shows the importance of staying calm, choosing words carefully, and being prepared to explain their perspective clearly. It's an essential skill in any conversation.
That's true. Jennifer, responding gracefully under pressure is a skill that takes time to develop, and elections are full of examples of it. It's like watching live practice of how to handle tough situations. English learners can learn a lot by observing how candidates pause, gather their thoughts, and respond. It's a reminder that it's okay to take a moment to think before speaking, especially in important conversations. Yes, and there's so much to learn from watching the different tones candidates take depending on the audience. In a rally, they might sound more passionate and energetic, while in a debate, they're more composed and direct. This shows how understanding your audience and adjusting your tone can make communication more effective. For English learners, it's a chance to observe how adaptable language can be. Absolutely, seeing these shifts in tone and style based on the context is eye-opening. It reminds us that English isn't one size fits all. The way you speak can change depending on who you're speaking to and what message you want to convey. Watching these dynamics during an election season can help learners become more flexible and aware in their own conversations, especially when speaking with people from different backgrounds.
And another interesting thing is how leaders often share personal stories to connect with people. These stories make them relatable and show a different, more personal side. For English learners, it's a great example of how sharing even small stories or experiences can help in building connections. It's about finding common ground, which can really make a conversation more engaging and warm.
So true. Jennifer, stories create a bridge between people. When candidates talk about their backgrounds or personal experiences, it shows that they're more than just their policies. For English learners, telling short stories can be a powerful way to practice and build connections with others. It's a reminder that storytelling isn't just entertaining, it's a valuable communication tool.
Exactly, Thomas. And it also highlights that vulnerability can be a strength in communication. When candidates share a personal challenge they've faced or a lesson they've learned, it often resonates deeply with people. For English learners, understanding that honesty and openness in communication can create a more genuine connection is so valuable. Being authentic often helps people feel more comfortable around you, which makes for better conversations.
That's a great point, Jennifer. Vulnerability does break down barriers and makes messages more impactful. It also shows us that you don't have to be perfect to communicate well. You just need to be yourself and speak from the heart. For English learners, it's a good reminder that the goal isn't to sound flawless, it's to express yourself clearly and connect with others. Mistakes are part of the process and they're completely okay.
Absolutely, Thomas. In fact, sometimes those little imperfections make conversations feel more real. People connect more with others who are genuine and relatable rather than someone who seems too polished. For English learners, embracing these moments of imperfection can lead to more meaningful interactions. It's about focusing on the message, not just the grammar.
And speaking of focus, another takeaway from election seasons is how candidates often stay on message. They emphasize their key points repeatedly, which not only reinforces their ideas but also makes them memorable. For English learners, practicing this skill, finding the main message they want to convey and sticking with it, can be a great way to become more confident and clear when speaking.
That's so true, Thomas. Repetition isn't just about saying something over and over. It's about highlighting what's important. When English learners focus on one main idea and come back to it, it helps their audience understand and remember what they're saying. This is especially helpful in public speaking or interviews, where staying on track and emphasizing key points can make a big difference.
And another thing is the way candidates answer questions by using bridging techniques, which means they bring the conversation back to their main points. It's a technique that keeps them in control of the message. For English learners, practicing how to gently steer a conversation back to something they feel comfortable discussing can be a useful skill, especially in challenging or unfamiliar situations.
Yes, that's a fantastic point. Bridging helps in maintaining confidence and control in conversations. If someone brings up a difficult topic, it can be reassuring to know that you can steer the conversation back to something familiar. English learners can use this technique to handle unexpected questions or comments, which can be a huge confidence boost in any conversation.
And just as important, Jennifer, is the art of listening. Candidates who listen to the questions carefully and respond thoughtfully often come across as more empathetic and trustworthy. For English learners, focusing on listening as much as speaking is crucial. Understanding what's being asked and responding genuinely builds stronger communication skills and shows respect for the person you're talking to.
I couldn't agree more, Thomas. Active listening is key in any conversation, not just in politics. When we really listen, we're able to respond in ways that show we understand and care about the other person's perspective. This builds rapport and makes interactions much more engaging and fulfilling. For English learners, practicing this can transform the quality of their conversations.
Absolutely. When we listen carefully, we not only respond better but also make the other person feel valued. That's what good communication is all about, making others feel heard. For English learners, the takeaway here is that conversations aren't just about saying the right words. They're about truly connecting with others, and that begins with listening.
Right, Thomas. Listening really does open the door to better connections. And something else that stands out during election season is the importance of clarity in messaging. Candidates work hard to make sure their ideas are simple and easy to understand, even on complex topics. For English learners, focusing on clear, straightforward language can make their communication stronger and reduce misunderstandings.
Exactly, Jennifer. There's a skill to breaking down complex ideas into simpler terms, and it's something English learners can practice. By avoiding overly complicated words or sentences, they can keep their listeners engaged and ensure they're being understood. And I think this also helps boost confidence as they feel more certain their message is coming through clearly.
Definitely, Thomas. Simplifying language doesn't mean losing meaning. It often makes ideas more impactful. Also, when English learners work on simplifying their thoughts, it can make conversations flow more smoothly, as they won't need to stop and search for complicated words or phrases. This can make everyday conversations feel much more natural.
That's a great point, Jennifer. Another thing to consider is how candidates often use body language and tone to reinforce their words. These nonverbal cues can make a huge difference. For English learners, being mindful of their facial expressions, gestures, and tone can add depth to what they're saying and make their messages more engaging.
Yes, nonverbal communication is powerful. A warm smile or nod can show interest and make others feel comfortable, even if you're speaking in a new language. English learners can practice matching their expressions with what they're saying, which can add a layer of warmth and make conversations more dynamic.
And along with body language, there's also the importance of pausing. Candidates often pause to let their points sink in or to emphasize key ideas. For English learners, using pauses thoughtfully can help them control the pace of their speech and make their words stand out. It also gives listeners a moment to process, making communication feel smoother and more deliberate.
Yes, Thomas, pausing is such a simple but powerful tool. It gives speakers a moment to gather their thoughts, which can be calming, especially in nervous situations. For English learners, a pause can also be helpful for thinking about the next phrase or idea, reducing the feeling of being rushed and improving clarity.
And that calmness you mentioned, Jennifer, is also important in helping manage nerves. Candidates train to handle high-pressure situations without showing too much stress. English learners can benefit from this too. Taking a deep breath before speaking and pausing occasionally can keep nerves under control and boost confidence during conversations.
Absolutely. Staying calm is such a valuable skill. By focusing on clear messages, active listening, and even taking those pauses, English learners can develop communication that feels both natural and impactful.
Jennifer, you're spot on. Another thing that stands out is how candidates often share relatable stories to connect with people. When English learners incorporate personal stories or examples into their conversations, it creates an instant connection with listeners. A story adds depth and makes the conversation feel more genuine, which is key for strong communication.
I completely agree, Thomas. Storytelling isn't just about sharing experiences. It helps make abstract ideas more concrete. It also gives the listener a chance to see the speaker's personality, building trust and rapport. Even small anecdotes from everyday life can make a conversation more engaging and memorable.
And stories can actually make speaking in English feel more natural too. When learners focus on telling a story, they're often less concerned with grammar or vocabulary and more focused on getting their point across. This shift in focus can help them speak more fluently and confidently, which is fantastic for building language skills.
Yes, Thomas, that's such a good insight. Storytelling is a wonderful way to let go of that worrying about mistakes. It's like when a candidate tells a personal story to make a point, they're not thinking about exact words, but about making a connection. For English learners, even if a few words aren't perfect, the overall message will shine through when the story is engaging.
Exactly, Jennifer, and on the topic of engagement, candidates often repeat key phrases to make sure their points stick. Repetition is a useful tool for learners too, especially when they want to emphasize something or make it memorable. Practicing this can add strength to their message, even in simple conversations.
Repetition does work wonders, Thomas. It's like adding a rhythm to communication, making the message more impactful. English learners can use this technique by focusing on their main ideas and repeating them naturally within the conversation. It's a way to reinforce their point and make it easier for the listener to remember.
That's right, Jennifer, and just like repetition, another effective technique is asking open-ended questions. We see candidates do this during debates or discussions to keep the conversation flowing. English learners can practice this by asking questions that encourage more than just a yes or no response. It opens up possibilities for deeper and more interesting conversations.
Yes, open-ended questions are a great tool. They show interest in the other person's thoughts, which is essential for meaningful dialogue. For example, instead of asking, "Did you like it?" English learners can try asking, "What was your favorite part?" This approach not only helps with conversation skills, but also makes interactions more engaging and enjoyable.
Exactly, Jennifer, that approach invites the other person to share more, making the conversation feel more dynamic and less one-sided. When English learners practice this, they'll notice it helps them better understand others' perspectives. It's also a great way to practice listening skills, as they'll need to focus on the responses they get. This back and forth really brings conversations to life.
Absolutely, Thomas. It also builds confidence because when learners receive a detailed response, it gives them more material to respond to, keeping the flow going. It's like a ripple effect in a conversation. The more a person shares, the more material there is to build on, creating a richer, fuller dialogue. This is especially useful for English learners aiming to move beyond short, surface-level exchanges.
Yes, and speaking of building confidence, one technique that political speakers use effectively is summarizing what's been discussed. It helps reinforce the main points and shows they've been listening closely. For English learners, summarizing in their own words is a great way to solidify their understanding and practice using different expressions to convey the same idea.
That's a fantastic tip, Thomas. When English learners paraphrase or summarize, they're actively engaging with the content and improving their ability to express ideas in various ways. It's also reassuring for the person they're talking to, as it shows that they're really being listened to. Summarizing can be a powerful tool in making any conversation more rewarding and memorable.
Exactly, Jennifer, and one final strategy I'd add is taking brief pauses to gather thoughts. This is something we often see candidates do. It gives them a moment to reflect before answering, ensuring their response is clear and purposeful. For English learners, pauses can be especially helpful to calm nerves and think through their words without feeling rushed.
That's a great point, Thomas. Pausing can also make the speaker appear more thoughtful and attentive, which is valuable in any conversation. It shows confidence in what they're about to say and gives the listener time to absorb the last point. For English learners, it's important to remember that speaking slowly and pausing is perfectly okay. It often leads to clearer, more effective communication.
Right, Jennifer, pausing isn't a sign of uncertainty, it's actually a sign of confidence and control. By embracing pauses, English learners can make their conversations feel more deliberate and impactful. It allows both the speaker and the listener to connect on a deeper level. So, while rushing might feel like the answer, slowing down is often the key to effective communication.
And with that, I think we've highlighted some of the most useful techniques English learners can adopt. From storytelling and repetition to open-ended questions, summarizing, and pausing, each of these skills can make conversations feel natural, engaging, and memorable.
Absolutely, Jennifer, and I'd add that these techniques are not just about improving your English, they also help you connect better with people. When you make an effort to be engaged and active in your conversations, whether you're talking about politics or something else, it makes the interaction more meaningful. It shows you care about what the other person has to say, which is something everyone appreciates.
Exactly, and when you listen carefully, you get more opportunities to learn. In a political discussion, for example, people might share different viewpoints. Instead of immediately thinking about how you're going to respond, listening deeply allows you to gather more information, making your own response even more thoughtful and informed.
Yes, Jennifer, and you don't have to be an expert on every topic to have a good conversation. As we've talked about, being curious and showing genuine interest can make a huge difference. Whether you're talking about an election or a personal hobby, asking good questions and responding with interest keeps the conversation moving and helps you learn as you go.
That's so true, Thomas. And if English learners are nervous about their vocabulary or grammar, they don't need to worry too much. The goal is to express yourself clearly and connect with the person you're speaking with. Even if mistakes happen, it's okay. It's more important to keep engaging and practicing. The more you do it, the better you get.
Absolutely. And another thing I want to add is that political conversations often require sensitivity. It's important to approach topics with respect and understanding, especially if you're talking to someone who might have a different perspective. For English learners, practicing how to express agreement and disagreement politely is really valuable. Phrases like, "I see your point, but I think," can help in these situations.
That's an excellent point, Thomas. Respecting others' opinions is key in any conversation, especially in politics where people often have strong views. Learning how to navigate these sensitive topics in English will not only make learners better at handling challenging conversations, but also help them build empathy, which is so important in any form of communication.
I agree. Jennifer, by practicing these skills, English learners can approach any conversation, whether political or personal, with more confidence and empathy. This kind of communication isn't just about learning the language, it's about becoming a more effective, respectful communicator in all aspects of life.
Exactly, Thomas. And one thing I've noticed is that English learners often shy away from political discussions because they're worried about making mistakes. But honestly, making mistakes is just part of the process. If you're trying to communicate your ideas clearly, you're doing it right. The more you practice, the more natural it will feel, even when the topics get complex.
That's a great point, Jennifer. Also, with political conversations, you'll often hear people use phrases like "in my opinion" or "I believe that." These are great ways to express your ideas without sounding too forceful. As an English learner, using these phrases can help you feel more comfortable sharing your thoughts while also being open to other viewpoints.
Yes, and using these kinds of phrases can also help in showing respect for different opinions. For instance, instead of saying, "You're wrong," you could say, "I understand your point, but I think." It softens your response and opens the door to more meaningful conversations. Even in a debate, this kind of language can make a big difference.
That's so important, and don't forget, in political discussions, it's also about listening to your conversation partner's emotions. Politics can bring out strong feelings, so if someone is passionate about their beliefs, acknowledging their emotions can help the conversation stay respectful and productive. You could say something like, "I can see why you feel that way," which validates their feelings while still giving you space to share your opinion.
Exactly, Thomas. It's all about striking a balance, expressing your own views while also respecting and acknowledging others. For English learners, this can be tricky at first, but practicing with a friend or a language partner can help. You'll get more comfortable with using these phrases and expressions to maintain a friendly, open conversation.
Right, and sometimes political discussions can get heated, so it's important to stay calm. If you don't understand something or need clarification, don't hesitate to ask. Saying things like, "Could you explain that a bit more?" shows you're engaged and interested without jumping to conclusions. It also gives you a chance to learn and keep the conversation going smoothly.
Yes, asking questions is a powerful tool in conversations, especially when it comes to politics. It shows that you're not only listening, but you're also trying to understand. That's key, whether you're talking to a friend or someone with opposing views. So don't be afraid to ask questions and take the time to truly understand the other person's perspective. Absolutely, Thomas. And one thing to keep in mind when discussing political topics is that people often use terms or expressions that are specific to the culture or country. As an English learner, this can be a bit challenging, but it's also an opportunity to expand your vocabulary. For example, phrases like swing state or popular vote in the U.S. election context are useful to know.
Great point, Jennifer. And while it's important to know these specific terms, it's also important to stay open-minded when listening to political discussions. Often, these conversations aren't just about the facts. They're also about values, beliefs, and personal experiences. By focusing on these aspects and using language that connects with people's emotions and beliefs, you can have a more meaningful conversation.
Exactly. And when you're talking about these big issues, try to avoid getting too caught up in the details of every single fact or number. It's easy to get overwhelmed, but remember that understanding the core ideas or values is often more important. And if you need to, you can always ask for a summary to make sure you're on the same page.
That's right, Jennifer. In fact, simplifying things can help make a conversation flow more easily. For instance, if you don't understand a complex policy or term, it's okay to say, "I'm not familiar with that. Could you explain it in simpler terms?" This keeps the conversation going without making you feel lost or overwhelmed.
Yes, and another great tip is to practice listening to political discussions in English, whether that's through podcasts, news reports, or debates. Even if you don't fully understand every detail, it helps you get used to the language and phrasing used in these types of discussions. Over time, you'll feel more comfortable navigating these conversations.
Definitely, and even if you don't agree with everything you hear, it's important to keep an open mind and engage respectfully. Politics can be polarizing, but the goal is to learn from each other and improve your English communication skills. This way, you'll be better prepared for future discussions, whether they're casual or more formal.
And one final tip I'd like to add is to be patient with yourself. Politics can be a complex topic, especially when you're still learning English. Don't feel pressured to have all the answers or to understand everything right away. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become in expressing your opinions and understanding those of others.
Absolutely, Jennifer, patience is key, especially when it comes to learning a new language and discussing topics that can feel overwhelming at first. It's okay to take things one step at a time. As you practice more, you'll become more comfortable with the terminology and the flow of political conversations, and that confidence will help you engage with others in a more relaxed way.
Exactly. And it's not just about learning the words or phrases. It's also about understanding the context behind the discussion. For example, when we talk about elections, it's not just about the candidates, but also about the policies they stand for and the impact those policies have on people's lives. Understanding the deeper context helps you grasp the conversation better.
Right, the underlying context is crucial. So, as you listen to political debates or discussions, try to pay attention not only to what's being said, but also to why it's being said. What is the speaker's motivation? What's the larger issue they're addressing? This way, you'll not only understand the vocabulary, but also the reason behind certain arguments or statements.
Yes, Thomas, that's an excellent point. It helps to connect the dots. Sometimes, the political language might sound complicated or formal, but when you understand the broader context, you can see how the words fit into the bigger picture. It's also a great way to build critical thinking skills in English.
And don't forget that there are many ways to practice outside of formal debates. You can join casual conversations with friends or colleagues, or even follow political discussions on social media. These platforms provide a more informal and conversational way to engage with political language, and that can help you feel more at ease in understanding and using it.
That's right, Thomas. Social media, in particular, offers real-time discussions and helps you stay updated on the latest political topics. Whether it's through Twitter threads, Instagram posts, or online news articles, these platforms can give you a different, more accessible view of politics. It's a way to expose yourself to the everyday language people use when talking about elections and policies.
Exactly, and these platforms also allow you to ask questions and engage in discussions with others who may have more experience in political conversations. Don't hesitate to join those discussions or ask for clarification on any term or idea you don't understand. The more you practice, the easier it will be to communicate confidently in political discussions.
Another thing to keep in mind is the cultural aspect of political language. The way people talk about politics can differ greatly between countries. Understanding these cultural nuances will help you adapt to different political contexts. For example, the tone, the gestures, and the way opinions are expressed can vary, so paying attention to these details will improve both your language skills and your cultural awareness.
Absolutely, and as you build that understanding, you'll also become better at recognizing the biases or perspectives people bring to a conversation. Political language isn't just neutral, it often reflects a person's background or beliefs. Being aware of these influences helps you better understand the meaning behind the words and respond thoughtfully.
Exactly. It's about not just knowing what words to use, but also recognizing the influence of culture, bias, and emotion in political discussions. This will help you become not only a more skilled communicator, but also a more thoughtful participant in political conversations.
That's right, Jennifer, and as we continue to practice, it's essential to expose ourselves to different political viewpoints. This helps us understand how others perceive issues and gives us the opportunity to expand our own perspectives. It's one thing to hear only one side of a debate, but it's much more enriching to hear both sides and compare how they use language to present their arguments.
I completely agree, Thomas. Exposure to a variety of perspectives will not only improve your vocabulary, but also help you become a more effective communicator. You'll learn how to argue, disagree respectfully, and even find common ground, which is such an important skill in political discussions.
Exactly, and something I'd recommend is following debates or speeches in English. You don't need to understand every word at first, but listening regularly will help you recognize patterns in language, phrasing, and tone. Over time, you'll start picking up on subtle cues that help you interpret the message more clearly.
That's a great tip, Thomas. And if you're feeling unsure about some of the language, it's okay to look it up or take notes. The beauty of learning through listening is that it allows you to immerse yourself in real conversational English. The more you practice, the more natural it will become to think in English, especially during discussions about complex topics like politics.
Yes, and don't forget about the power of repetition. Political language can be full of complex terms, but hearing them repeatedly in different contexts helps you internalize their meanings and usage. This process makes it easier to recognize when those terms are used in future conversations, allowing you to engage more effectively.
Repetition really is key. And as you get more familiar with political vocabulary, don't hesitate to try using those terms yourself. It's one thing to understand them when you hear others use them, but it's another to incorporate them into your own conversations. Start small and gradually build your confidence in using these terms naturally.
Exactly, Jennifer. You'll be amazed at how quickly you can start to use the vocabulary in real conversations, whether it's with friends, in a debate, or even while watching political events. The more you practice, the more comfortable you'll become, and soon it will feel as though you're thinking and responding in English effortlessly.
Yes, and finally, remember to stay patient with yourself. Political language can feel intimidating at first, but with consistent practice and exposure, you'll be able to engage in political conversations just like a native speaker. Keep pushing yourself, and over time, you'll find it much easier to think in English about all sorts of topics, including the election.
Great point, Jennifer. It's all about taking small steps. Once you start thinking in English during political discussions, you'll notice a huge difference in your ability to respond quickly and clearly. You won't be constantly translating in your head, and that will help you sound more natural.
Absolutely, Thomas. And as we continue to practice, it's also helpful to follow election coverage in English. News outlets, social media platforms, and even podcasts can be great resources. Hearing native speakers talk about the election in real time gives you a chance to learn current phrases and expressions.
That's so true, Jennifer. Election coverage often includes interviews, debates, and expert opinions, all of which will expose you to a range of vocabulary. Listening to different speakers will help you get used to various accents, tones, and ways of presenting ideas. It's a great way to improve your listening skills and build familiarity with how political language evolves.
I agree, Thomas. And another thing to consider is participating in discussions about the election. Whether it's online or in person, don't be afraid to join the conversation. If you're nervous, start by asking simple questions like, "What are your thoughts on the candidates?" Or, "What are the main issues in this election?" It's a low-pressure way to practice speaking while staying engaged with the topic.
That's a great strategy, Jennifer. Asking questions is an excellent way to ease into discussions without feeling overwhelmed. It also shows that you're interested in learning more, which will encourage others to explain things clearly for you. And remember, the more you ask, the more you learn. Soon, you'll be able to express your opinions confidently.
Exactly, Thomas. Asking questions not only helps you practice English, but also lets you learn about different perspectives. And the more you practice, the more comfortable you'll become with expressing your own opinions. So don't hesitate to engage with others on the topic. It's an excellent opportunity for growth.
And let's not forget about the power of watching debates or interviews in English. Many political figures participate in debates that involve not just arguments, but also stories, examples, and personal experiences. By listening to these, you'll understand how to weave more engaging, detailed points into your own conversations.
Right, Thomas. It's one thing to understand the factual side of politics, but it's another to understand the emotional and persuasive side. Listening to politicians use storytelling techniques and examples can help you learn how to make your own arguments more relatable and convincing when you engage in conversations.
Exactly, Jennifer. And one final tip: try to follow election coverage consistently. The more you expose yourself to political language, the more familiar you'll become with common phrases and expressions. Over time, this will make it easier for you to follow conversations, participate, and even think in English about political issues.
Absolutely, Thomas. So remember, the goal is to immerse yourself in English as much as possible. Whether it's through watching, listening, or speaking, keep practicing and stay engaged. The more you do this, the more natural it will feel to think in English. And before you know it, you'll be able to confidently discuss the election and other complex topics in English. We hope today's episode gave you some helpful tips on thinking in English, especially when discussing complex topics like the 2024 U.S. election. Remember, practice makes perfect.
Absolutely, Jennifer. Keep immersing yourself in English, stay curious, and don't be afraid to jump into conversations. You'll be amazed at how quickly your skills will improve. Take care, everyone, and happy learning.